right, guys.
Fan club over here.
Huh?
You got a fan club
Oh,
over here.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Those are my guys, Ling and Lamb over there, social media stars. You know, I want to really get into this conversation because, you know, I love the way sports has really kind of integrated its way everywhere, and everyone is integrating their way with sports. And when you think about sports, you know, it's not just about entertainment, it's about connectivity, it's about commerce as well, connectivity. How do you guys differentiate, or how do you guys get yourselves into the conversation when it comes to the integration with sports?
I can start. So as I think about, for us, how we think about where to start with sport, we start with, you know, our purpose is to help all families discover the joy of everyday life at Target. So all families, we think about how can we show up for families and bring them that little extra piece of joy. And sport and sport culture and watching that evolve is like this perfect confluence of the DNA of Target, style, design, trend with culture. And it's really been a beautiful evolution. We think about it in two ways, both what we sell, we're a retailer who sells things, as well as how we show up in the world. And so, you know, and the what we sell, you know, fashion, style, design is core to who we are. And so we've seen a really amazing evolution, done many partnerships as we think about the limited time designer collections to really bring sport fashion to the limelight. We've evolved, you know, our sporting goods. So we sell a lot of equipment. And, you know, it used to just be equipment. And now it's lifestyle and fashion. And so if you want a pickleball paddle, you can just get a fashionable one that's going to match you at Target. And youth sports is another huge one. You know, I think it's 50% of kids in America play youth sports. We want to be a destination for their first. So introducing kids to sports is a big, big role that Target plays. And then how we show up in the world, from a marketing standpoint and community standpoint, for us it's all about experiences and the experiences that we want to create. And so we have a huge local hometown pride in Minneapolis. Yes, we do big sponsorships of, you know, Wolves and the Twins and our Minnesota United, but it's much more for us about connecting with fandom and bringing experiences to life through sport. And so whether it was the T-Wolves playoffs a few weeks ago, which was disappointing for the Timberwolves, or Messi coming to town, we really tapped into that and tapped into culture and said, how can Target bring unique experiences to tap? It was like the most attended and watched game. Really fun way for us to celebrate our city. And then we also do it in bigger ways too. And you know, people will talk about the Super Bowl. Target doesn't do the Super Bowl, but we want to be part of the phenomenon that is the Super Bowl. And so last year we said, okay, we're not doing a Super Bowl commercial, but how can we show up? And so we tapped into a trend that was going on in social. Really funny, there is this group of guys, they call themselves the Husbands of Target. They hang out in the parking lots while they're waiting for their wives or significant others to buy something at Target. The notion of you go in for one thing and you come, you know, you're taken forever. So these guys, these social media influencers started this club. They're hanging out in our parking lot, literally playing poker and doing fun things. And so we tapped into them for the Super Bowl. We had an epic tailgate actually with them in our parking lot. Invited Matthew Stafford to join as sort of a guest cameo, although he wasn't Matthew Stafford, he was minivan guy.
Okay.
Grillin', flipping burgers in our parking lot. My point is, we did this all on social. It was a way for us to actually be part, and it was one of the most loved. It's what our guests would expect, how Target would show up.
Yeah, because Target has been this organic brand, right? It's been this family type of brand. Actually, just fresh off of a private jet, we've got Raj. Raj, come on in. Raj Register from Stellantis. Your plane just landed. Thank you so much for joining in on the conversation. You know, we were just talking about, you know, the integration when it comes to sports. It used to be where you thought about sports and brands showing up on the big sporting events, the big ones like you mentioned with Cara, with the Super Bowl. But you guys are doing more than just coming in for the big show. Why is that? I'm going to ask you, Raj. I'm going to get you jumped in real quick.
He is like, no time. Go.
No time. So thanks everyone for your patience. So when I think about Stellantis and sports and Super Bowl, it's much bigger than just the moment. For us, it helps us set the stage for our brand to really show that we're in it. This past Super Bowl, we were the only automotive category to present at Super Bowl. And some people said, like, well, why would you do that? And for us, it gave an opportunity not only for exclusivity, but for us to show that we're here, we're American, we are a brand that should be considered. But then also it gave us a chance to have our voice in the midst of a lot of noise. And so when you can be disruptive at a time where no one else is doing the same thing, I always take advantage of those opportunities and then leverage it to not only create more moments, but then also make sure that when we take a step back and we look further, I can take those big bets in other arenas. So not fast follow, but to really just as a brand stand on our own and do things that I believe are important to get our message out there.
And Carla, I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
because how do you differentiate from, you guys seem, JPMorganChase seems to show up everywhere. How do you differentiate with your integration with youth sport
Yeah.
to something like the Olympics or the U.S. Open?
I'm gonna key in on something that Cara, you said around fandom, and so again, we're all marketers here, and we think about putting the customer, the consumer at the heart, of everything that we do, and so. Sports is the great equalizer. It's a thing that brings communities together, it brings people together, and you've heard like multiple different ways to activate. For us, activating at the community grassroots, like youth level is really important. And so, for example, in the UK, we've had the opportunity to be the official partner. Chase is the official partner of the home nations football teams. And so think, UK or Great Britain and Scotland, Wales, Ireland. And so we're really proud because it's not just that we're a partner of the team, but the way we're activating it is not just the sponsor of the team. It's actually going into the communities, integrating with the communities, most importantly, giving access, whether it's through literacy or kits or whatever it might be, to kids that otherwise wouldn't have that access. And so we're using the platform that we have to actually bring up the youth so that they can be a part of something that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to be a part of. And so for us, that's really important because usually when you do think of a sponsorship, you're thinking of it at that big scale. And the reality is for us, where we've seen the impact is at the community level. So there's some things that people say like, oh, that feels small. And I'm like, yeah, but it's really impactful. And so when we think about impact versus size, always at the local community level, always at the youth sports level, it seems to really drive engagement and again give people an opportunity to know that we are serving them in their communities. That's first and foremost important, most important to us because we're a brand about trust and about safety, and particularly when you're talking about people's money. So to be able to go into a community through sports that actually doesn't have access to financial literacy and tools that other people might have access to give them access, again, through sports, is really, really important. It's something they care about.
Yeah, and that loyalty is something that shows up, for Target because, with Target, there's obviously the loyalty program, but when you go back to the root of loyalty, is loyalty about the ROI or is the loyalty about really that connection?
It's absolutely about the connection. And so we think about how can we sort of tap into sort of unique fandom, but also show up as who we are. And so the power of community, what you just said, Carla, is absolutely how we think about the intersection as well. And if I think about, who we are as a brand and our values, there's nothing more powerful than the integration with sport. We serve 2,000 communities around the United States. We are proud. We've given back 5% of our profits since 1946. Our team shows up for the community each and every day, 1 million volunteer hours. And the intersection of those volunteer hours with sport happens across the entire United States. We've just launched a partnership with the Dallas Mavs. It's actually very appropriate to this audience because it's bringing, raising awareness on marketing and creative fields for youth. We're doing, with the links, we're doing something different and actually talking about women empowerment. So this unique intersection of just who we are in our DNA, the ability for us to sort of touch and reach communities at a local level, we see that intersecting with sport. And I completely agree with Carla, like why is sport is a unifier. Sport is something that people connect with. Sport is something that's accessible in really small ways, kicking around a soccer ball in the community, all the way up to the big stages, and then fueling that fandom.
Sports is so emotional, and it's not just about winning and losing. It really, there's a lot of emotion that comes with that, and with that, there are values that are aligned with that. You get to see how that plays out. like, I'll ask you this, Raj, which is something that I've always been interested in. Like, how did you separate, like, intentions and then authenticity and being there, you know, as a brand when you see the roller coaster of emotion that sports brings and the connection as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so from my perspective, so Stellantis is a house of brands. So from a North America perspective, you have Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Alfa Romeo, Fiat, and Chrysler. And in many cases, when you think of a brand, there's an emotion around it. I think everyone probably remembers their first car. And so for me, I always try to tap into the brand DNA and what does it really stand for, and really leverage how we stand in the community as well as what we actually mean to certain households. So cars are the second typical biggest purchase decision that someone has to make. And in order to tap into the mind of a consumer, you really want them to live and breathe. You want them to enjoy whatever it is that they're purchasing. But a car is something, first, you hear music in, you take trips in, you go to sporting events in, and many times it's an extension of your life outside of anything else that you have. And so digging into things that people are passionate about, and in many cases, it is sports, leveraging that as an opportunity to make that connection that then drives people to make that purchase decision. And so anytime we have that chance to not only leverage it during things like broadcast or in our media, or also, and I love the examples of community, like we have a partnership with Jalen Rose. When we show up in communities and we actually invest and spend time and dig deep, many times that trajectory will change someone's life, but also change how they think about you as a brand in the future. So for me, for example, I've spent 20 years at Ford Motor Company. Ford sponsored my high school curriculum, and I was a pre-engineering student. And me tapping into a company at such a young age helped drive that decision for me to then go work for the company. And that's a whole different perspective. So you always think about selling something, but many times brands don't spend enough time on thinking about how they can change the lives, but also potentially change the trajectory of a student. So I became an engineer because Ford helped me become an engineer, and that was the first place that I worked. And then I drove Ford products for 20 years. Now I'm in a different automotive company, but I still have that same belief that tapping into community, leveraging things that really resonate will definitely help drive certain decisions long term.
Yeah, you took me back with that one, because I remember when I first got into playing American football, and I wore size 15 in high school, and we couldn't find any. Back then, it wasn't like there was readily available, and I remember Nike stepping in to help get me a pair of size 15 cleats, and that made me turn around to become a Nike athlete.
Who bet on you
back then.
first?
Right. Who helped you first?
That's right.
So in this world where everyone's kind of chasing, what the brands are chasing these kind of impacts, how do you measure what matters?
Well, I work for a financial services company. We measure everything. So, you know, there's math all over the place, people. But I think it starts with what you want to accomplish out of the partnership that you have. And so, you know, there are some partnerships we have that they exist solely to drive connection, to drive change in consideration of our brand. So, you know, if people have a certain point of view and we want to change that point of view, or loyalty, there are some partnerships that we have that are like literally exist to drive customer engagement. And so what that looks like, how it manifests itself is, for example, some of the events that we do with our Chase Sapphire credit card. So if you're a Chase Sapphire Reserve member, you get access to having, you know, dinner at Madison Square Garden on the court, right? And so, you know, you get to shoot a few hoops, you get to have a great dinner, you get to do it at the Chase Center if you're in the Bay Area as well. And so some exist to do that because that connection, that engagement continues to deepen already existing customers or acquire new customers. So it really, and some exist for clients and potential clients. So we've got across JPMorganChase, we've got a consumer business. We also have a B2B business, right? And so we have, you know, corporate clients. And so for us, it's just a mix of things. And we've got a framework, we've got a scorecard after everything we do. We measure the ROI where we can measure it. In some cases, you're going to be able to measure it pretty quickly. We just signed a deal that we're really excited about with the newest expansion team, the WNBA, the Golden State Valkyries, and we already, based on just their ticket sales on Chase card, which is 100% incremental to us and comes as a result of the deal, have pretty much, like, we feel really good, I'll say that, we feel really good about the investment. And so, you know, it really just depends, but we track it, and I would encourage anyone who is thinking about these kinds of things to track. Because at the end of the day, the single biggest thing we exist to do in marketing is to drive growth. And that's through building our brands, that's through driving engagement with our customers, acquiring new customers. The only way to do more and more of that is to measure it. And so in some cases, it's tangible and very measurable. In some cases, it's more long-term. But you've got to measure it. And so that's the only thing that's going to build the credibility with your CFOs and with your other partners and your CEOs to be able to do more of that investment that we all know is the right thing to do.
So I'll ask this to all of you guys. What does the future then of sports marketing look like for your brands? Because we're seeing the evolution, we're seeing the change. What does that look like for you guys? I'll start with you, Cara.
I mean, I'll maybe just pick up where Carla left off, which is it's both big and small, and it's fluid. And as we think about sport infusing culture in a bigger and bigger way, for me and our brand, I think about the infusion of, again, style, design, trend, lifestyle. We want to be the curator of that, and so we'll show up in more indirect ways and more direct ways as we think about what we sell. But it's also about this intersection of product and experiences. And sometimes just bringing the experience to life, being part of the fandom, actually tapping into the zeitgeist that's going on. Every fan community is very different. You can be, by the way, big sports teams, your local youth sports teams, Pokemon fans, you know, we've got fans, but it is so actually tapping into how they work and being part of it, not as target, but just being part of that experience is really the future for us. And so, you know, if I think about, I use back to college as an example, huge time of year, you know, we serve families. Families come to us, you know, from usually young age, babies, all the way through. Back to college is a huge, big moment where we're sending kids off to school. Well, we have tons of stores in college towns. And so, yes, we do a lot of business. We spend a lot on marketing for back to college. But we extend that into game day in the fall. We want to be there. We want to be part of actually celebrating college football, but right on campus. We'll turn our stores into fan zones. We'll be playing the fight songs on the store. Our store team members are in the gear. Why? Because they're fans. We're right in that. And so those local moments, like the event activation in a store, can I measure the ROI on that? Exactly? No. But us being relevant, you know, on campus, in the exact moment, on game day Saturday, that's what builds your resonance of your brand. And so it is short and long, and I think thinking through how you really tap into fandom and bring those experiences to life is where I go.
Yeah, I think you'll hear a little bit, you know, I'll try to add and not repeat, but I think you'll hear a very similar theme on passion points. So for us, it's about how do we authentically show up in the passion points that our customers have, not in what we think is cool. But then but the authentic piece is important, right? Because when you think about your values as a brand, and you were talking about this, Raj, but when you think about your values as a brand, if they're not authentic to the partner that you're partnering with and the passion points of your customer, it doesn't work. And so bringing all those three things together is really important. I will say, if I'm getting very specific, I think women's sports is really exciting right now.
You guys just had a partnership with Alex Morgan.
Alex Morgan, yeah. We just announced a partnership yesterday with Alex Morgan. We're so excited about it. And what we're most excited about, actually, thank you for mentioning Akbar, but what we're most excited about it is actually, it's not just about, you know, Alex Morgan, the incredible soccer player, right? It's actually about Alex Morgan, now the investor, the entrepreneur, the woman who owns a content agency, who's going to tell the stories of female athletes, who's going to bring that to life. It's also about Alex being a client of the firm. And so we're trying to think about how do we bring the entire firm to Alex to help her fulfill her dreams and what she wants to do. And yes, she is a celebrity and kids love her and they look up to her, all of the above. She's got an incredible career behind her, an incredible life ahead of her. And but so it's about all of it coming together end to end. But women's sports is really exciting right now. And I wouldn't say it's a moment. I think it's the time. Like it's, and so I'm very, very excited about that. In addition to continuing, obviously all the things that we do on the big scale and then on the local scale. And so it's an exciting time in sports.
Yeah, is it different for your brand with Stellantis when you have Jeep and Dodge and Chrysler and you have all the different things under this umbrella, this house? How do you guys work that into really the future of sports marketing and marketing for your brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for each brand, there is what I would consider DNA. And that means that every brand doesn't have the same story to tell, nor do we have the same problem to solve. And so when I think of Jeep being more off-road, adventure, definitely much more swagger than some of the other brands, so I can tap more into major sports there. But what people don't necessarily expect, and you brought up women in sports, is really tapping into those sports arenas that don't necessarily have a voice and a stage, because right now everyone is going after the same things. And so what I try to look into is, well, what stories are not being told? How do you go deeper, not only from a community level, but then try to tap into the DNA of these particular groups of people that then draw them into some correlation with our brand. Chrysler, definitely more family-oriented. We had an activation, and I can't name the person, but a Heisman, winner that was driving around in a Pacifica, but taking his teammates around in this Pacifica, which was very unexpected. So many times when you see Chrysler, you think mom and a slew of kids. You don't think of football players. When I think of Dodge, for example, that's definitely our badass brand, but there's things that you can do that really tap into the identity and then really just holding true to what those things are and not trying to peanut butter spread things across the board. Other communities that don't get any face time, from my perspective, enough of is our Hispanic consumers. So FIFA's coming up, everyone wants to buy into that, but what about the road to that? What about the other club sports that are not necessarily getting that face time? That's where I want to be. Obviously, you have to do mainstream, NCAA, NFL, all those things are important, but right now what I'm unpacking is women, African Americans, Hispanics, some of our younger consumers, and really trying to build a credible relationship with them early on. Like your example with Nike.
Yeah.
Like I want to be that person where, hey, I was your first vehicle.
Yeah.
And how do I create that extension legacy throughout your family? So in my family, for example, toothbrush and toothpaste was Crest. I don't know why. That's just what our family was. So I want to be
Was it
Jeep.
the one with the green and the white?
It was the one no, it was blue.
Oh, it was blue, like blue.
It was blue.
Yeah,
So it was blue. And then when the sparkles came, it was like, oh, we're the Crest family that has the sparkles in it, right?
Yeah.
And then the scope, right? Or the Listerine. And so I want to be the household name, regardless of brand, of like, oh, we drive Jeep. We don't know why we drive Jeep. We love that brand, but it was a part of me growing up, and it's a part of my family tradition. So that's what I'm looking to tap into. So, and I think sports is a wonderful way of doing that, but doing it in a way that goes deeper, is authentic, and then also leveraging our dealers. Like they're the face of the customer right now. So if we give them opportunities to tap into their local sports, tap into their high schoolers, tap into those colleges, even alumni associations, like those are the things that we should be driving deep in, and I think that's where you get those authentic, connections.
Can I just say one
Yeah,
thing?
sure, go ahead.
I mean, don't sleep on what she just said.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, and what you heard Cara just say. Like, I just think everybody gets enamored with the big things, right? Because as marketers, we're like, oh, can we be a part of that big thing? But everybody is a part of that. And at the end of the day, even think about yourself. If you live in zip code 10025, you don't care what's going on in zip code 10024. You care about what's going on in your own community. And so, like, don't sleep on that, right? Like, listen to what she just said. It's so important. Like, zig when everyone is zagging. Sometimes that's a great strategy. Not always, but sometimes that's really a great strategy. And deeper in the communities you can get, the more embedded your brands are in those communities, and the longer, like, the lifetime value of that customer is so much more important when you connect with them at an early stage. Sorry, I didn't mean to,
That's right. That's right. Real quick, because I've always wondered how, and just maybe quickly from each of you guys as we start to wrap up, how quickly, or not how quickly, but how well does the brand listen to what's happening? I had this interaction with Dwayne Wade here the other day. I told him that my daughters organically found his shoe brand, Way of Wade's. They didn't even know who Dwayne Wade was, right? And they told all their teammates, go buy this shoe, go buy this shoe, and they all coordinated. And they're a basketball brand shoe now having to perhaps maybe even turn over to volleyball. Do you guys listen to that if something organically happens, whether it's through social media or you see a movement that wasn't intended for you guys? How do you guys mobilize quickly?
Yes, you have to.
Yeah.
If you don't listen now, I mean, particularly today, if you don't listen, you're irrelevant. You have to listen.
Wow.
You have to listen, and you have to listen and act.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's a hard yes.
You have to listen and act, and like to my teammates of Target example, what we did in the Super Bowl, we had decided to do that. We were announcing a pickleball line. We decided to bring it back, had the guys in our parking lot playing pickleball. But what was happening in the moment was WNBA. So Caitlin Clark was going through the roof, and so we actually brought in a WNBA player, literally within a week's notice. This was not planned, and we had her be part of this. So if you're not sort of listening and moving, and you can move in small ways and big ways, I completely agree you're irrelevant. And that is harder to do than ever before, but that is our job as marketers.
Raj, 10 seconds for you.
All right, so I have a formula. This is the engineering. This is the science part of me. So 60% of my strategy is usually like some sort of consistent foundation, like business as usual. You have to get this stuff done. Another 25 to 30% is key launches, key things that we have to be in front of. And the last 10% is disruption. So how do I pilot? How do I listen to the things that weren't necessarily in the plan, do unexpected things that people would then expect me to do? Meaning, don't do something weird and strange, and then people are wondering, well, why did Stellantis do that? But do something super cool. It's like, damn, that made sense, right? So that's like, leave room for that, and then you can scale it, and then that becomes part of the 25 or 30%, or foundationally, in years to come, it becomes 60% the foundation of what you do as a business.
Wow, thank you guys so much. Powerful conversation, you guys. Thank you very much. There's a reason why you guys are big brands.
Thanks, Akbar.
Thank you guys.